How's it going, everybody? C-RadTV back here with another video. Of course, we are now in the round 2 of the NFL playoffs, as we are now in the divisional round of the NFL playoffs, the second round. As after last week, we started the playoffs off with 14 teams. We eliminated 6, and now we are down to our final 8 teams to battle it out for that 59th Lombardi Trophy down in New Orleans in a couple weeks. And of course, after this week, we will be cutting the playoff field in half, as after this week, we will be cutting the field from 8 teams to our final 4. So, of course, last week with the wild card picks, which were in the playoff bracket predictions video, because that video was effectively the wild card picks. So, in the wild card round, I went 4-2 in the wild card round. So, my record this year is 196-82. So, yeah, and of course, we got 4 games on the docket for each game. We're going to go in depth on it and talk about it one by one. And yeah, so let's go ahead. Let's take a look at each game. And I have custom graphics for each game remaining. Starting off, we have our first divisional round game Saturday at 4:30 on ESPN. Houston Texans, Kansas City Chiefs playing in Kansas City at Arrowhead. The Chiefs, the number 1 seed in the AFC. Their first playoff game because they were on the bye last week since they had the 1 seed in the AFC. Anyway, the Chiefs, they are favored in this game by 8 points. So they're 8-point favorites over Houston. Kansas City, they lead the all-time series over Houston 10-5. And the Kansas City, they are 2-0 in the playoffs against the Texans. As yeah, this is the first time both teams have met in the playoffs since 2019. Let me just say this here. The last time Houston and Kansas City met in the playoffs, it was actually in Arrowhead. And that was the game where Houston famously blew a 24-point lead in 10 minutes and showed everybody why Bill O'Brien was a hack. Mainly started off with pretty bad coaching because Bill O'Brien, he chose to kick a field goal on a 4th and inches on the Chiefs' 10-yard line. And then a few minutes later proceeded to fake a punt on a 4th and 4 on his own 30. Which, honestly, that play call alone should have got Bill O'Brien fired on the spot. But yeah, now the Texans, they get a chance at redemption to rewrite that wrong from 5 years ago. Problem is, though, I don't think that's going to happen because Texans, they're pretty banged up. They have a lot of weaknesses compared to the Chiefs. Even though in the regular season, the Chiefs look pretty fraudulent, I'll be honest, I think the second half of the year, I think the Chiefs were sandbagging and treating the second half of the year like a test and tune-up session for the playoffs because they were so far enough ahead to where they could just coast the rest of the year. Because I know everybody's down in Kansas City, and I think everybody's making the same mistake they all made with Tom Brady. Because the Patriots were famous for doing this type of shit that the Chiefs are doing right now. And you know what happened every time everybody doubted the Patriots and Brady and they call it the Pats fraudulent? They hit the switch and turned it up in the playoffs, and Brady, in 6 rings later, everybody should have learned their lesson there. And I think everybody is making that same mistake again with the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. And I think the Chiefs are going to hit the switch in the playoffs and turn it up and live up to their potential. Plus, Houston, you know, they have no Tank Dell, so their receiving core, like, the team's banged up. I think the Chiefs are just going to be too much for the Texans to overcome. Plus, in both games, Kansas City won over Houston. The playoffs, both games weren't even close. Including that famous game where the Texans blew a 24-point lead in 10 minutes. Because the Chiefs ended up winning that said game by 20 points. Man, it was like Kansas City was never down 24 to begin with. But for this one, yeah, I got the Chiefs winning this game over Houston. I'm taking Kansas City to win, and I'm going to take them to cover the spread. So give me Kansas City plus the 8-point spread. I will take the Chiefs by 8 points in this game. So give me Kansas City to advance to the AFC Championship game over Houston. Now to our next divisional round game, our Saturday night game at 8 o'clock on Fox. Washington Commanders, Detroit Lions playing in Detroit at Ford Field. The Lions are the 1 seeded for the first time in franchise history. And for this game, Detroit, they are heavy favorites coming into this game, as Detroit is favored by 9.5 points over Washington. So effectively 10-point favorites at home in this game. Washington, they lead the all-time series over Detroit 31-16. And Washington is 3-0 against Detroit in the playoffs. Of course, this is the first time these two teams have met in the playoffs since the 1999 wild card round. aka the first year for the Lions in the post-Barry Sanders era. So, yeah. And also, the last time these two teams met, I believe that was like Dan Snyder's first years of ownership of the Commanders, which would start a run of Dan Snyder being one of the worst owners in the league since Hugh Culverhouse. But yeah, Washington, they have a pretty great young team. Detroit, they're starting to get healthy at the right time. This is going to be a very interesting matchup. I do like what Washington's building. Like, I hate to say this, but I think the culture Washington is building is actually damn good now. Crazy how much likable Washington is once you get rid of fucking Dan Snyder, that piece of crap. But yeah, and I'll be honest, as absurd as it is to favor a team by 10 points in the playoffs, like, I think that's fucking absurd to favor a team by double digits in a playoff game. Like, that's just asking for trouble. I think Washington's gonna be too much for Washington to handle. Especially since Detroit gets David Montgomery back this week, which means Sonic and Knuckles is officially back in business. I mean, maybe Washington could possibly make this a closer game than everyone may think. As long as the fan base doesn't do something stupid, they should be fine. Never mind, I retract my previous statement. Yeah, just because of that chant, Detroit's gonna fucking win this game big. I think this game won't be close now. Because, Washington wants Detroit. They're definitely gonna get Detroit all right. All 10 inches of Motor City muscle up Washington's virgin assholes. God damn it. When are people gonna learn that we want blank chant doesn't fucking end well 95% of the time? Like, did we literally learn nothing from that we want Boston fiasco last summer? When Miami Heat, Cleveland Cavaliers, and Indiana Pacers and Dallas Maverick fans all four did the we want Boston chants? And all four proceeded to get bitch slapped by Boston in the playoffs last year. Hey, some people gotta learn the hard way. So yes, I am taking Detroit to win this game. And I am taking Detroit to cover the spread. As ridiculous as it is to favor a team by 10 points in the playoffs, I think Detroit can cover that spread. So I'm taking Detroit plus the points. I'm taking Detroit by 10 over Washington. And I think Detroit will advance to the NFC title game for the second year in a row. So give me Detroit over Washington in this one. Now to our next divisional round game, our Sunday game at 3 p.m. on NBC. Los Angeles Rams, Philadelphia Eagles playing in Philadelphia. The Eagles are favored by 5.5 points over the LA Rams. Philly, they lead the all-time series over LA 24-20-1. And LA, they are 2-1 in the playoffs against the Eagles. This is the first time they've met since the 2001 NFC Championship game. The last year, the greatest show on turf for the Rams before the Rams fell apart. And of course, that was the year the Rams went to the Super. That was like the last time Kurt Warner won MVP. So yeah, it's been a hot minute since these two teams have crossed paths in the playoffs. But the Rams, they were able to get a playoff win at home against the 14-win Vikings. And the Eagles, the number 2 seed. I think Philly's starting to get healthy. I think Philly has a lot of flaws. But, LA, they're very hit or miss. Like, their offense is a light switch. 1 week they're on it, next week they're off. And since they were on it last week, I think this week they're going to be off it. Like, LA, they're going to go into a very hostile environment. All I say is to all the Rams fans is if you thought how Detroit fans treated Stafford last year was bad, you're in for a rude awakening. Because you have no idea how worse Philly fans are. Because Philly fans will make Detroit fans look like fucking choir boys. If we're being honest. But yeah, Philadelphia. I think Philadelphia will handle business. I have the Eagles winning this one over the Rams. And I have the Eagles covering that spread. So I am going to take Philadelphia by 6 over the LA Rams in this one. Although Stafford, he could make this a little closer game than some people may think. But I think the Eagles should handle business. I got the Eagles winning at home in this one. Give me Philadelphia by 6 in this one, and I have Philadelphia advancing to the NFC Championship game. And now we get to our final divisional round game, Sunday at 6:30 p.m. on CBS. The game of the week in this round. Baltimore Ravens, Buffalo Bills playing in Buffalo. Lamar Jackson versus Josh Allen, the two front runners for the MVP going head to head. Baltimore, they are favored in this game by 1 point. So Buffalo at home are 1 point underdogs. In Baltimore, they lead the all-time series over Buffalo 7-5. However, they've only met one time in the playoffs back in 2020, and Buffalo won that game. That was actually the last time the Buffalo Bills advanced to past the second round of the playoffs. This is actually a very hard game to predict. This game could go either way. Honestly, I was back and forth on this one, especially in my playoff bracket predictions video, because this was a matchup I had in the second round in that bracket video. And yeah, I was back and forth on this one. Honestly, this is going to be a good game. Both teams are pretty evenly matched. Honestly, I wouldn't be against anybody picking Baltimore. Honestly, you can make a solid argument for either team, and it would be very valid, in my opinion. Honestly, you can make a solid argument for the Ravens and Lamar Jackson. It would be valid. You can make a solid argument for Josh Allen and the Bills, and it would be valid. It could go either way. But there's one thing we know for sure with Baltimore. If you can stop Baltimore's run game, you stop that entire offense. Because the Ravens' offense lives and dies by the run game, especially last week when they had 300 yards rushing against the Steelers. Just the Ravens took care of business, but we all know one thing for sure. Lamar Jackson has always struggled in the playoffs when it's mattered the most. He's a great regular season QB, but the playoffs are a totally different animal. And even though Baltimore did win the game against Buffalo earlier in the season, that was in Baltimore. This time in Buffalo, I think it's a different environment. And I think Buffalo gets payback for earlier in the year. I have the Bills winning this game over the Ravens. I think a lot of people are going to say the Ravens in this game, but I think the Ravens and Lamar are going to choke. I think they're going to choke. I'm going to go upset. So for my upset of the week, I'm taking the Buffalo Bills at home over the Ravens. So give me Buffalo at home in this one, and I'll take Buffalo by 1 point over Baltimore. It's going to be a close game. It's going to be the best game of this round. Looking forward to it, but I got the Bills winning this one at home. So yeah, and those are my divisional round picks. So my AFC and NFC championship game predictions, it's the same predictions I had in the bracket video last week. I'm going to stick with those same predictions. So my AFC prediction is Kansas City versus Buffalo. My NFC is Detroit versus Philadelphia. So I'm sticking with my original picks. But yeah, those are my divisional round picks. That's all I got to say. Hope everyone has a great day, and I'll see you all over I make next. I'm out.